Imagine a nation completely uprooted. Ancient Israel is in exile, forced from their homes and scattered across a foreign empire. They wander through the ancient world like a flock of sheep without a guide, feeling the weight of total abandonment. In Ezekiel, the prophet identifies the source of this collapse: the shepherds of Israel. These were the kings, priests, and political leaders, the men entrusted to protect and guide the nation. Instead of guarding their flock, these leaders saw their people as a resource to be consumed. They extracted wealth, comfort, and power for themselves, leaving the people starved of the protection they were supposed to provide. This diagram illustrates the systemic nature of that neglect. When the vulnerable got sick, the leaders ignored them. When citizens were injured, no one bound up their wounds. Resources were forcefully funneled inward to a central core, while authorities ruled through intimidation and cruelty. This corruption bled downward into the community itself. The strongest individuals in the society began imitating the cruelty at the top, using their leverage to hoard resources and physically pushing the weaker citizens aside to secure their own comfort. God grieved for the individuals behind these statistics, the specific men and women bruised and neglected by the people meant to protect them. Every instance of suffering was a personal heartbreak to him. When leadership becomes parasitic and justice vanishes, society collapses into chaos. This left the most vulnerable members of Israel utterly defenseless, trapped in a reality where their only hope was a miracle. That miracle begins when God declares that he is taking on the role of judge, holding these corrupt leaders personally accountable for the devastation they caused. God issues a definitive declaration: I, even I, will search for my sheep. This promise bypasses the need for a new human king or another prophet. God himself is stepping into the role. The rescue mission he outlines is incredibly specific. He commits to searching the earth for his scattered people, pulling them out of the darkest corners of their exile and carrying them back to safe, abundant pastures. While the false leaders asked only what they could gain, God's mission is driven by an entirely different focus. He looks for who is wandering, who is hurting, and who needs healing. This compassion is backed by a commitment to justice. God promises to step in at the ground level, actively stopping the strong and the oppressive from continuing to abuse the weak and the overlooked. The solution God presents to Israel's collapse is personal. He will cross the divide between heaven and earth, entering the chaos directly to be present with the people he loves. To ensure the flock is cared for eternally, God makes one final promise. He declares he will set up a single shepherd king from the lineage of his servant David to feed and protect the people forever. Because King David had been dead for hundreds of years when Ezekiel wrote this, the prophecy pointed toward a future Messiah, a new kind of leader from David's line who would fulfill God's promise. We fast forward across centuries of waiting and silence to the first century, where this ancient promise finally materializes in the person of Jesus Christ. When Jesus stands before the crowds in the book of John and announces, "I am the good shepherd," he is reaching back to Ezekiel 34. He is identifying himself as the very God who promised to come and rescue his people personally. He immediately began the rescue mission Ezekiel described. He sought out the outcasts, healed the physically ill and the spiritually broken, and confronted the religious leaders who were still exploiting the vulnerable. This diagram captures the ultimate cost of that rescue. While the human shepherds had sacrificed the sheep to save themselves, this shepherd king acted as the central point of unity, laying down his own life on a cross to draw the scattered sheep back together. Through his resurrection, that sacrifice established an everlasting covenant of peace. The gathered flock was placed into a permanent fold, ensuring they could never be destroyed or abandoned again. Ezekiel 34 reveals a creator who refuses to let his people stay lost. It is the record of a God who saw our vulnerability and traversed the cosmos to personally carry us home.